Welcome to the Eduonix HTML5 projects course. This course is going to be a little different than our other courses, as it won't be so much explanation as there will just, I guess, in the field development. Alright, so we'll break this course up into 10 different projects, 10 different chapters, about 4 to 6 videos per chapter. Alright, so let's just go over what you should know before taking this course. It should go without saying that you need to know basic web development and web design principles. You should definitely know HTML, basics like headings, paragraphs, things like that, inline images. You don't have to know all the HTML5 tags like section, main, A side. You can kind of learn those as you go, but it would help if you knew basically all the new tags that HTML5 offers. Basic CSS styling, you should definitely know at least a little CSS, how to create divs and boxes and background colors and images and things like that. JavaScript and basic jQuery. Alright, so if you're new to HTML5, you need to know that most of the advanced features that HTML5 offers are powered by JavaScript. Okay, so things like audio and video, drag and drop, local and session storage, all JavaScript. So it would really help if you know at least the basics of JavaScript, and events and callback functions, things like that. Alright, so let's go through each project just very briefly. So chapter 1 is basically just getting started. We'll talk about what HTML5 is, and we'll look at some of the new structure elements, tag syntax, doc type, things like that. And we will do a very small project where we'll just create a web page with a header, a nav bar, a main section, a footer, things like that, and we'll style that with CSS, and we'll also implement just a little bit of JavaScript, just some simple events, click events, just to get started. Alright, then we'll move to building an HTML5 blog front end. Alright, so when I say front end, I mean the visual aspects of the blog. Okay, we'll create a list of posts. We'll create an ad page with a form using HTML5 form elements. We won't be building a back end, so we can't actually make blog posts through the browser. That'll have to be done through HTML. Alright, and we'll get more in depth with structure and CSS. Responsive, we're going to make it responsive with media queries, make a nice flexible layout that looks good on all devices. Chapter 3 will be an image gallery. Alright, it will build in a UI or user interface with HTML5 and CSS3. We'll introduce data attributes, which are basically attributes we can put on our tags that are strictly used for data, for computations or whatever, things like that. JavaScript and jQuery will get fairly heavy into that. We're going to be using 2 jQuery plugins to achieve animation. One is Quicksand, which will allow us to click on a category and have the images kind of scatter and fall into place. And then FancyBox is a plugin that we'll implement to be able to click on an image and have it open up in a light box. Alright, so that'll be chapter 3. Chapter 4 we'll get into HTML5 Canvas, which allows us to create shapes, lines, and text. We'll build the UI obviously in HTML5. JavaScript Canvas scripting. The Canvas element is an HTML5 element, but it needs JavaScript to be able to fill shapes, draw shapes, animation, things like that, all have to be done in JavaScript. Alright, and the Snake game will also implement the local storage API. Alright, and that's going to be used basically for the score. Okay, so we want to be able to, each time the snake eats the food on the canvas, we want the score to increase. Alright, and then at the end it should have a high score, and that high score will stay there until it's beaten, and then it will be replaced by the new high score. So that's basically how the game will work. Chapter 5 is going to be an application where we have graphical sticky notes. Alright, so we'll use sticky note images, and we'll be able to add text to those and move them around and add and delete them. So we'll build, the user interface will be built with HTML5 and CSS3, and we're going to implement the web storage API here, which is basically it's basically a local client-side relational database where you can actually use SQL to add or remove or update fields or data. Alright, and we'll also look at the drag and drop API, because we'll be able to click on a sticky note and drag it around and put it where we want it. It will also look at app cache a little bit, and we'll create a basic, very simple manifest file for this application. And this application will also be using JavaScript object-oriented programming. Alright, so again, we'll have a good amount of JavaScript. Alright, so the next project will be a drag and drop file uploader, or actually an image uploader. So we'll build the user interface with HTML5 and CSS3. We'll implement the HTML5 JavaScript drag and drop API, so we can pull in files from our computer and just drag them and drop them into a box inside of the browser. And we'll be using a jQuery plugin called File Drop, which helps us do this. And we'll also be implementing a little bit of PHP. We're going to deal with the files super global array to actually upload it to a temporary directory, and then we'll use PHP to move it to the directory we want to move it to, the file or the image. Okay, and then we have an HTML5 quiz app. So it's basically going to be a pretty simple quiz, 5 questions, all on HTML5. And basically we'll have one question will show up. You pick the correct answer, multiple choice, click next. Another question will fade in, click next, and keep going until you reach the 5 questions, and then after that it'll give you a score, and you can have the option to take the test again. Okay, so pretty simple functionality. HTML5 CSS3 UI. We'll be using DOM manipulation, mostly through jQuery, because obviously when we show question 1 we're going to hide the rest of them, and then question 2 will hide the rest of them, and so on. And we're going to use session storage for this application, which is basically the same thing as local storage, except when you cut out the session, when you close the browser, everything will clear. And I think that's fair, since this is just a quiz and you're just going to get a score at the end. There's not really any reason to save the score beyond that session. Alright, and then in the last part we're going to optimize the code. Alright, because I just want to start with very simple code, and there will be some repetitive blocks of code just to to have you get it. But once you get it, in the last section in that chapter, we'll take that repetitive code and combine it, compress it into one loop, just to make it more readable and just better flexibility. Chapter 8, we'll be building an HTML5 audio player. This is probably my favorite project in this course. We'll be building it from scratch. We'll build the UI. We'll get the play, pause, stop buttons, and we're going to add functionality to each part of it. Alright, so we'll do the HTML5 CSS3 UI, and then once we build the interface, we'll add the play, pause, stop functionality, and then we'll build the playlist functionality. We're going to be able to just have a media folder where we upload songs, and we can actually load them into the player. For instance, if you want a whole CD, you can load all the songs on the CD, and then you can just scroll through them with the next and the previous arrow buttons. And we're also going to display the song duration. Alright, we're going to display the time as well as a progress bar that will fill up as the song plays. Chapter 9, we're going to actually get into mobile development. We're going to use the jQuery mobile framework, which you don't have to be intimidated. It's pretty easy to use. We're not going to deploy it onto a smartphone or anything like that. It's just going to be an HTML5 browser app. But if you went to, for instance, if you uploaded this app onto a website and you went to that website on your phone, then it would look really nice because it's using the mobile framework. Alright, so basically it will be a multi-page AJAX template, and if you've worked with jQuery mobile before, you probably know what that is. And we'll also use the local storage API for our to-dos. So we'll be able to create, edit, and delete our to-dos. Okay, the last project is going to be a customer manager system. It's going to be very simple. It's just going to allow you to add customers to an indexed DB system. Alright, so IndexedDB is an alternative to the web storage or the web SQL storage that HTML5 offers, which is actually depreciated. We'll build the UI, and we'll actually be using Bootstrap in this project. We'll use a basic Bootstrap template. Of course, IndexedDB storage. We're going to learn how to open and structure a database. And this is all on the client. IndexedDB is a client-side database, so everything's stored in your browser. Alright, there's no server needed. Adding and getting customers, deleting customers, and we're going to use the HTML5 content editable attribute so that we can click on, say, a customer name, we can click on it and it'll turn into an input box and we can change it, and then when we click out of that box it'll actually update. Alright, so that's something that we haven't seen before in this series. So that's it. Pretty excited to get started. We have a bunch of good apps here, a lot of learning, so I hope you enjoy the course.